season, number 7 Syracuse holds its senior day. SU's veterans aim to bounce back from an overtime loss Wednesday with High Point in town for the first time ever. Not the first time I've had the chance to work with my friend Tyler Aitken. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Ian Nicholas from the JMA Dome. Tyler, just a few days ago, Syracuse was here against Army, and it did not end well again in an extra period.
It didn't. That's 2 straight losses for Syracuse in overtime games. And that's starting to become a concern because one last unranked game at home before a stretch of 6 of 8 of Syracuse's final games on the road. It'll be a tough stretch for Syracuse. One last get-right opportunity today.
They'll use him on the wings to start, where Mason Cone, another one of the big-time additions in the offseason from Tufts, wins the opening draw and takes a huge shot as the Fogo loses the ball, and we're underway from the Dome.
Well, that's what he provides. He keeps the defense on their toes. And that's the thing. Anytime he wins a face-off, the defense has to have in the back of their minds, this guy could go down and score, and that opens up lanes for his other players as well. 9 points on the season for Mason Cone, almost on par with what he did in the entirety of last season at Division III Tufts. Jack Van Overbeek behind cage for High Point. The Panthers playing their 3rd straight game on the road and their 2nd top 10 game of the season. Lost to Duke in their 2nd game of the year, and that was back at their place, Vert Stadium. Braden Maia, we highlighted him in the pregame. Behind cage, him and Jack Van Overbeek. Both players, Tyler, missed last Saturday's game at Cleveland State, but High Point still got it done. Still got it done without them. Got a huge step-up game from Isaiah Moran-Weeks with a career-high 4 goals.
Van Overbeek, the initiator of this Panthers offense. A shot deflected from Jack Sawyer. Off of Syracuse, it stays with High Point, only 9 on the shot clock. Sawyer again. An errant pass and a shot clock violation. John O'Dearna's defense standing strong on a lengthy first possession.
Impressive endurance from the Syracuse defense. Lots of sloppy passing from the Panthers. They average about 16 turnovers a game. Can't have those mistakes if you want to take down the Orange.
High Point, 23 turnovers and a 7-goal victory against Cleveland State a week ago today. 7th straight home game to open the year for Syracuse. It's been an interesting schedule. They were here on Wednesday against Army and lost in overtime. Michael Leo, who has done some notable things in overtime this season for SU, misses that shot running towards his left. Joey Spallina trying to bounce back from a goalless game against the Black Knights, where the pressure really is starting to mount on number 22.
I mean, a 0-goal, 2-assist game isn't bad, but for Joey Spallina, it's certainly not great.
What did you think of the comments that fellow attack Christian Moulet made after the game about his teammate?
I mean, you have to defend your teammate. You have to stand up for him, and he's right. He pointed out that he's just a sophomore, and he's getting the best pole assignment every single week, and High Point doesn't really have a defender like that, but he's got to get used to it because he's going to play some of the best defenders in the country against the Dukes and Notre Dames of the world later on.
There is Christian Moulet, who tries to find a man on the doorstep. It was Spallina, but the rebound goes in for Syracuse. Finn Thompson cleans up the mess and puts the Orange on the board to get things going.
Just really, really gritty offense from Finn Thompson to follow up. He's only 150 pounds. He shakes off the pole, picks up the ball, scores himself. I mean, that's just pure effort. That's not strength. That's giving a care about what you're doing. There's a reason he had 3 goals against Utah just last week.
The box lacrosse background from Finn Thompson, the Canadian, played with Mimico club team in the Toronto area, where one of the better players on High Point, Isaiah Moran-Weeks, also played. And that's what those guys can do right in front of cage when it gets chaotic, finish in those tight spaces. 5th straight game in which Syracuse has scored the opening goal. But SU has lost 2 of its last 3 games. overtime defeats against top 5 foes Maryland and Army. And Tyler, that Maryland game, you were here for it, a little fluky with the goal mouth and Michael Leo. Obviously, the rules are the rules. But that loss to Army, that was a legitimate overtime defeat where Syracuse had some opportunities to win.
It was. Joey Spallina took not a great look at Cage, guarded by 2 defenders, and then obviously had the missed open goal by Moulet.
Open goal for a man dodging down the near side, Colin Cook, and Will Mark was having none of it. His first save on his senior day. The grad student in his 2nd year with the Orange, after 3 years at Long Island University. Nice to see him bouncing back as well. He was great at defending those corners against Army, but when they were shooting towards Mark's stick, Joe Alberici's team was having success in its overtime win.
11 saves, not terrible, but they need to come at the end of the game, and that's when he couldn't find them.
Christian Moulet off a roll dodge, got his hands free and couldn't score. Rather, Jackson Burtwhistle, one of the 10 seniors Syracuse is honoring tonight. He was really good against Army, a hat trick.
First hat trick of the season.
Jake Stevens, welcome back. Drops his defender, but just misses off the crossbar. You know, statistically, Jake Stevens offensively might not put up the gaudy numbers, but the #1 impact transfer, according to Inside Lacrosse in the preseason, coming from Princeton. Moulet, a no-look feed, and a score! Good to get Joey Spallina going.
I mean, he was so due for a goal. It wasn't like he wasn't putting up shots last time out. He took 5 of them against West Point, just couldn't find the back of the net. But how about that beautiful setup there by Moulet? That's what opens up Spallina's game, because Moulet can play at X. That means Spallina can be in front of the goal more.
And what did Gary Gate and Christian Moulet say after that Army loss? How about we help out Joey Spallina and get him moving off the ball? And that's exactly what you saw there as the middle school buddies from Long Island just connect with each other.
There's a certain chemistry there, almost like brothers. Lacrosse is a big family sport. Of course, Joey Spallina's got 2 brothers on this team. But if you play for someone long enough, you got eyes in your back of your head when you play with them.
Yeah, their father, Joe, he's going to be in the Dome on Tuesday night when Syracuse women's lacrosse takes on Stony Brook. He is the head coach. 2-0 Syracuse, though, in a men's lacrosse battle. Face-off won by the freshman, Johnny Mullen. Make it, take it lacrosse for the Cuse.
And it's funny, Mullen wanted to be like Cone. He looked at the sideline, pointed at, hey, me, do I really have to come off the field? And he got the nod from his coach and ran off.
Gary Gate is always going to invite transition opportunities, whether it's his talented long pull, Sam Alexo, or his face-off guys, but that has been more Mason Cohen's style. Moulet trying to create more for Syracuse, but he's doubled. Spallina back from X, gets his hands free and scores again. Number 22 already with 2 first-quarter goals, and the Cuse up 3.
He's playing catch-up. He knew he needed to pad his goal stats a little bit after putting up a nothing burger against Army, fading away. I mean, that's impressive. Zach Brenfeld has been a solid defender so far for High Point. Caused turnovers in every game he's played this year. But in terms of man-to-man defense, he's totally outmatched by Spallina.
And that's where, against an Army or a Maryland matched up with an Ajax Zapatello for the Terps or an A.J. Pilot, as Spallina scores his 16th goal of the year. A.J. Pilot, Army's best long pull. Maybe not getting topside dodging from X, but Spallina taking advantage of the opportunity there. Another opportunity for the Orange offense. Back-to-back draws won by Mullen. SU a 3-1 advantage at the Block S logo so far tonight.
And that's not an easy feat. I mean, High Point is still a top 10 face-off team in the country, winning about 65%. So it's certainly a worthy win right there for the Orange.
Syracuse, a bottom 10 team in the country a year ago at winning face-off. So that's why they decided to grab Mason Cohen from Tufts and Johnny Mullen, a top 100 recruit. The far pipe No goal, at least that's what the High Point players think, but the officials are convening. But the second look gives Syracuse the goal. Jackson Birtwistle, one of the best finishers SU has, but one of the wonkier finishes of his career. It barely snuck in.
Well, you just saw that fan right there. He put up his hands. He didn't know how it went in, but it worked. Stevens with a stutter step and hesitation. And I think everybody thought he was shooting, except for Birtwistle. He realized that was to him and knocks it right in.
Syracuse opened this thing up easily. 4-0 lead. First time the Orange have had a 4-0 lead to start a game at any point this season. That's just what Jackson Birtwistle does, though. I don't blame the officials because the ball gets in and out of his stick so quickly. It's almost like there's lava on the ball. Just like, get it out.
Hot potato.
Good to see Jake Stevens doing his thing for the Orange. He had missed the previous 2 games with an upper body injury. He had the assist as Birtwistle with his 4th goal in the last 2 games. Had his first hat trick of the year against Army on Wednesday. 3rd straight possession for Syracuse. High Point, its first ever trip to the Dome, first ever game against the Orange. Although these 2 teams played a fall ball scrimmage 2 years ago, and well, this is the real thing. And it gets a little bit different when it's the real thing. And Michael Leo has been the real deal in his sophomore season, as it's now 5-0 SU.
Dating back to last year, Leo, 13 straight games at the goal. This one, unlucky number 13, he's lucky number 7. And again, doing it himself. A lot of his goals with his hat trick against Maryland were isolation goals, not off assists. He does the same thing right here. Does a great job creating his own shot.
And he's going to take that matchup all day, every day against a shorty and Campbell Posen. That was a big sticking point after the Army game for Syracuse defensively, as the Black Knights were just getting after Syracuse's rope unit.
Well, you say he'll take that matchup all day. But to be fair, Posen was ranked as the best short stick defensive midfielder in the country just 2 years ago. That's quite the talented player to have a mismatch against, but that's Syracuse lacrosse.
Michael Leo, a top 40 recruit last year. The long pull, Matt Wright, let it fly and deflected away by the goalie, Zach Overend, the sophomore.
You got to feel bad. I mean, his teammates Sam Alexo, Billy Dwan have gotten long pole goals. He wanted to join that group, couldn't quite find it.
Luke Roa gets his hands free and nearly pings one in. A pipe job robs the sophomore of a goal. The ground ball won by Muley in the Orange. Tussling behind Cage, an absolute swarm for the ball. And a strong effort from High Point to get the ball back into the stick of Overend. John Adams, the senior, fed it back into the goal mouth.
Don't know if it should take that much effort when it's a bunch of poles going up against a bunch of small attackers, but eventually you win the ball back and get one of your first actual possessions of the day.
Syracuse out shooting High Point by 8 in the early stages of this one. And the only shot on goal for the Panthers was saved by Mark. Nick Rizzo on the far alley. An all-conference player in the preseason for HPU, the only one for 11th year head coach John Torpy. Rizzo, a roll dodge that gets him flustered, and Sam Alexo fighting for the ball with Rizzo. Rizzo loses track of it, and Alexo's efforts earn the Orange the ball. Might have been a real possession for High Point, but it doesn't last very long. High Point hasn't fired a shot. Only one shot on the game, and that came 5 minutes ago.
It's tough to stay involved and stay close when you don't have many opportunities, and that's why Syracuse struggled so much last year, because it lost the face-off battle almost every game. And so that puts quite a bit of pressure on Zach Overend and the rest of the Panthers defense.
Sam English trying to apply the pressure as he meets a slide. And charges right into a High Point player. That's a turnover. But Syracuse gets the ball back on the ride. English passed it to Hiltz. Obviously, he didn't have the chance to score because SU turned it over. and Hilt said, I'm going to take the ball right back.
Don't know what Gary Gait said to this team after the Army game, but the offense, in terms of chasing ground balls and playing the ride hard, this is the most intense I've seen them all season.
English gets his hands free, but has no angle. Joey Spallina was talked about plenty after the Army game. Has 2 goals and make it 3. Who says he can't dodge? Creating for himself. Spallina, a first quarter hat trick.
Well, Ian, before the game, I was talking about patience. And he had patience on that shot. Didn't force it, took his time, finds the back of the net. A 6-0 lead for Syracuse early in this one.
Syracuse and High Point playing for the first time against each other ever today, but not the first time Gary Gait has seen John Torpy. In fact, Gait's coaching career began at the pros level with the Colorado Mammoth when Torpy was a player.
So many connections between these two programs and these two coaches, even though it's the first time they've played. I mean, John Torpy played under Joe Bresci at Ohio State, who's now the UNC coach, who has a great relationship with Gait. There's so many connections in college lacrosse.
It's a small world. Who would have thought Logan Wisnauskas, after his Tewaaraton award-winning career at Maryland, would be back his first year as an assistant and had to interview for the job just like anybody else. But what an ad. Torpy telling us during the week that he thinks Wisnauskas is still a top 5 player in the world.
I mean, he was the best player in the world at one point, so that's not too shocking to hear.
In the college world, that is true. Won the Tewaaraton with Maryland. Wore number 1, which is the Syracuse equivalent of number 22. 6-0 Syracuse has looked extremely strong in every facet of the game after a loss to number 5 Army on Wednesday in the Dome in overtime. But this is a High Point team receiving votes in the Inside Lacrosse poll, and one that's made 2 NCAA tournaments under John Torpy since joining the Division I ranks in 2013.
I mean, it was a quick rise just 2 years after the first season of High Point Lacrosse in 2013. They were an NCAA tournament team. That's impressive, and they've dropped off a bit since then, but still a strong young program.
Oh, and you're playing in a state where you're competing against schools like Duke, UNC. They joined the Atlantic 10, the second year of that conference, growing the game down south. John Torpy and company trying to get their 4th ever top 10 win. Only 1 shot for High Point throughout this first quarter so far. There's another one off the stick of Jack Van Overbeek, this senior attack. 10 seconds on the shot clock. Met by a slide on the far alley, and an errant pass nearly falls into the goal well mark right on the spot.
Great defense there from Caden Cole, a captain on this Syracuse team. He was removed from the starting lineup for the past 3 games. Now back in the starting lineup. He clearly hasn't missed a step.
A 2-time captain, the definition of the guy being ready when his number is called. Senior day for Caden Cole alongside 9 others today in the Dome. 6-0 lead for the Orange. It's the first time since February of 2022 that SU's gotten off to a 6-0 start in the game. That was the first game of the Gary Gait era against Holy Cross. I guess purple is just a color he doesn't like.
Orange beats up on purple.
Big fan of a color wheel?
I guess so, sure. Those are both Halloween colors.
Syracuse spreading the wealth, giving out goals like they're, giving out candy on Halloween.
There you go.
Tic-tac-toe, 7-0 Syracuse as Christian Muley finds Twine.
Following up his big hat trick performance against Army. He's been a great passer today, had that nice assist to Spallina earlier. Finds a goal of his own, up to 2 points on the day. It's just so nice having him and Spallina interchangeable at X. It opens up so much for both of them.
You know, Muley said after the Army loss, you got to give Joey Spallina a break. He's not going to score 10 points a game. Well, number 22 already has 4 because he was credited for the assist on that quick stick finish from Muley. Mullen takes that face-off for Syracuse, but High Point wins the battle, thanks to their face-off man, Colin Hoban.
Syracuse only up 5-3 in that category. It's not going to be a totally dominant day at X for Syracuse. It's going to stay relatively close because Hoban has been so solid this year. Top 20 face-off man in the country in terms of win percentage.
Might be even at the X, but High Point with just 4 shots in this first quarter. Its first was on goal, none since. Deflected on his way to Cage, getting in the way of that shot. Nathan Levine puts his body on the line.
I don't even know if the ball made it off the stick of Van Overbeek. Just bounced right off Levine's shoulder. That's why you wear pads. It's a physical game.
You never want to wear one, but if you are going to wear one, at least put it to the shoulder. That shot from Van Overbeek on the other end. Syracuse backs it up and keeps it. And it's 7th straight home game to start the year. The Orange lead 7-0 in their first ever meeting with High Point. Finn Thompson from behind Cage. Finds Owen Hiltz, who nearly rolls it in with a low-to-low shot. Another chance for SU. Hiltz celebrating his senior day. Missed the entirety of his sophomore season before returning last year. Had the game-tying goal against Army to bring it into overtime on Wednesday, late in the 4th quarter. Another blocked shot before it makes its way to the crease, and High Point starts for clear.
And that's just sloppy out of Leo. You don't need to go behind the back there. Just sometimes Syracuse gets a little fancy. Some physicality there sent towards the way of Zach Overend and Cage.
Talk about taking a risk. Cross-field pass. Finds the stick of Heddery Mudlaff. High Point 4 for 5 on the clearing game today. The Panthers haven't put a shot on Cage in over 10.5 minutes. SU came into that Army game on Wednesday with the top 5 scoring defense in the country and allowed 14 goals against the Black Knights. Van Overbeek again, dancing with Riley Figueres, SU's top cover man. Runner is deflected. Matt Wright was having none of it in the battle of number 51s. That shot from Tommy Meehan. There's Meehan again. Ball gets kicked around and out of bounds. Another chance for High Point, deflected away. Braden Maia, that's the player you want for the Panthers with the ball in his stick. The top goal scorer in the A10. Shot clock turned off in the waning moments of the first. Van Overbeek gets his hands free and scores. Slots one in the bottom right. High Point finally on the board.
Goal number 9 on the year for Van Overbeek. Had a nice spin. I mean, Sam English, that's such a mismatch for him. Having a more offensive-minded midfielder there. And you could tell the Panthers wanted it bad. Pretty happy for their teammate to finally get High Point on the board.
That's the kind of energy you need right now if you're John Torpy's team. To let in 7 goals to start the game. Only 2 shots on goal through the first quarter, but one of them drops. Van Overbeek did not play in the Cleveland State game, was questionable alongside fellow first-line attackman Braden Maia for this one. But one of them gets on the board. A face-off win to end the first quarter, but it doesn't lead to anything for High Point. First ever meeting between these two squads, and it's all orange inside the dome. The ball is flying for the number 7 Orange, who got 7 first quarter scores.
Aitken as a number 22, then like it's a problem. That's how important that number is. That's the level of expectation you have on you.
I just remember when Joey Spallina was still a recruit, the #1 recruit in the country coming out of Mount Sinai High School on Long Island. There was the question, is he going to get the number 22? That was like almost the first big act of Gary Gates' head coaching career. Yes, he is going to wear the number 22.
I mean, if you had to give it to anyone on that team a few years ago, Spallina had to be the person, right? It had to be Spallina.
Start of the second quarter, High Point did score the last goal of the first. Jack Van Overbeek beat the buzzer and slipped one by Will Mark. But only 3 shots on goal for the Panthers all game, compared to 8 for the Orange, who are sliding really well defensively. Nowhere to go for Colin Rovier.
Yeah, no more mismatch, no more Sam English on the field playing defense. That's pretty much the reason High Point got a goal, because they found that mismatch against him.
Yeah, you look at the 2 Princeton transfers and you ask which one you'd rather have playing both ways. And Jake Stevens playing for his first time in 3 games, that's the guy you want on the defensive side of a ball. Let Sam English do his thing, dodging offensively. Let Joey Spallina do his thing. He's got a lot of room, and he's going to score with ease. Already 5 points for Spallina, powered by 4 goals.
In some attackmen, they get into this rhythm where they hold the ball too long. For Spallina, it had been the other problem this year. Shooting too early, getting too anxious. His patience today has been second to none, waiting to the last possible moment to shoot and score. And with his power, that's when you want to do it. A little crease crank right there, bounced it in, looking beautiful.
Good effort from Corey O'Connor to try and make it somewhat of a difficult attempt for Spallina. A great clear for Syracuse, but Tuortan Watchlister is looking much more like the player he had been all season long before that Army game, where for just the 2nd time in his 2-year career, Spallina was held without a goal. Another face-off win for Johnny Mullen. He's getting his most work early in a game that we've seen all year. Mason Cone, not a lot of him.
Well, like I said earlier in the broadcast, this is the opportunity. One last unranked home game before the rest of the way you're either on the road or against a ranked ACC foe. This is the opportunity to give them opportunities.
It has been pretty 50-50. You mentioned the stats for High Point, one of the better teams at the X in the country, and Mullen 3 of 5, Cone 3 of 6, 9 of the 11 draws for this High Point team taken successfully. Jake Stevens tried to rifle a load, a high shot upper right, and tracked down by Zach Overend. Syracuse playing zone defense, at least behind the cage, is nobody. Marks Van Overbeek. Plenty of teams playing Syracuse in the Dome this season have tried to zone up Joey Spallina, most notably Colgate, in the 2nd game of the year to mixed results.
What do you call 3 goals and 4 assists mixed results, Ian?
You gotta be impartial.
Fair enough.
Turnaround jump shot from Van Overbeek. Another chance for High Point. A behind the back flip, an underhand shot and score. The 2 best players on this attack line looking like it. Van Overbeek to Braden Maia for the score.
Yeah, Matt Wright, the Syracuse pole, was caught out of position there. Went for a shove late. Figueres honestly caught out of position as well. That's way too much room for the best attackman in the A-10.
High Point survived Cleveland State on the road without both Maia and Van Overbeek. And although he might play at a mid-major, Maia wasn't Tuortan Watchlister 2 years ago. And it's for finishing ability like that.
We have White, 1-1, indirect contact to the head, 1 minute, Non-releasable. Face off.
And an insult to injury. Not only does the goal still stand for Maia, but you mentioned Riley Figueres out of position, and now he positions himself in the penalty box for a minute. Unreleasable, too.
And so this is an opportunity for High Point. If it can grab a face-off win, score, then you still have man up after that. Now, that's asking a lot for a team that's put up 2 goals in almost 20 minutes of play. But these are the type of opportunities, a 1-minute unreleasable for the opponent's best defender, that you have to take advantage of.
First extra man chance for either team today. A violation on the face-off between Hoban and Mullen. And the grad student, Hoban, you talk about opportunities. He wins that. He gives his team a chance to score its 3rd straight goal. Instead, Joey Spolina and company are going to kill this penalty off if they don't turn it over.
They can just sit around midfield, take their sweet time. Who knows, maybe they'll try to score, but it doesn't make much sense to them.
Don't want to get called for a stall. As Finn Thompson dances around the restraining line. Syracuse scored the first 7 goals of this game. High Point battling back with 2 of the last 3. Haven't beaten the top 10 team, the Panthers haven't, since 2019, a year where they took down both UVA and Duke, who were ranked in the top 10 at the time.
Syracuse's last top 10 win was in year 1 of Gary Gait. That was against the number 10 Duke team as well.
The goal of the year, Tucker Dordovic, between the legs in transition. Roll dodge from Leo, met by a slide, gets swallowed up, and High Point takes over. Strong ground ball pickup from Corey O'Connor, who clears it. Panthers with just 4 shots on goal compared to 10 for Syracuse, despite an even battle at the X. An important moment, really, Tyler, for both teams. High Point, it does not get easier after this. They got Georgetown on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Syracuse has Hopkins at Charlotte a week from today.
And that's a Johns Hopkins team that just took down #1 Virginia earlier today, or what would have been #1 Virginia.
Nobody unbeatable. Duke also proved that last night in a loss to UPenn. Braden Maia tried to pot his 2nd straight goal and shot one right off the left pipe, which has done no favors for either team. Cross-field pass, just short of the intended target, Isaiah Moran-Weeks. Syracuse running and gunning. Owen Hilt slows it down.
He had Jake Spolina on the cut, but that would have been forcing something that wasn't quite there. He just got his first goal not too far back.
Week and a half ago against Utah. It was an exciting moment, obviously, to score your first collegiate goal, but Joey Spolina was on the field, and you know, in a season where he's caught a lot of flack, that must have been a fun moment for the Spolina family. Behind cage, Muley gets a step on his man, turns around and can't bounce it in. Good effort from Burt Whistle to win the ground ball to himself, out racing Robbie Lang. Stoppage in play. Shot clock's going to get reset after that shot a few moments ago from Muley, so put 60 on it. It's been a slow quarter for the Orange, just 1 goal compared to 7 in the first. Spolina off the pick. Burt Whistle low to low, blocked away. Zach Overend, his 3rd save of the night.
This game really has taken a similar pace to the women's game earlier. Syracuse went on a 6-0 early lead over Duke, and then it was a very slow 2nd quarter. The pacing very similar, and Syracuse won that one 15-8. I'm sure the Orange would take a 15-8 win today.
You take that and cash it in. A win is a win is a win. 2nd time in 3 Saturdays from the Dome, but it has been a women's men's doubleheader. 2 Saturdays ago, it was a pair of overtime losses. Maryland handed them out both. But then earlier today, Kayla Trainer's team, the women's squad, with a win over Duke. High Point, not winning right now, but they're fighting back. Jack Van Overbeek, his second goal. And a timeout on the field. Panthers have outscored the Orange so far in the second quarter. And that's because the 2 best players on High Point are back. Jack Van Overbeek gets some room off a pick and scores. Panthers still down 5. Start of his career last week at Cleveland State, and he had a career-high 4 goals. That's 3 straight goals for High Point, and they're fired up. They win another face-off, and they call timeout. John Torpy knows how big a moment this is for his crew, Tyler.
5.5 minutes roughly left in the first half. This is an opportunity to maybe make it a 2, maybe even a 1-goal game going into the break. That's an opportunity High Point can't let up. And it all comes back to faceoffs. An even 7-7 battle so far. Colin Hoban has stood strong. Like I said earlier, a top 20 faceoff man in the country when it comes to win percentage. Was 15 for 21 against Cleveland State. But he'll take 7 and 7 against one of the better teams as well with Syracuse and Mason Cone.
Mason Cone is not played particularly well, at least you look at the numbers. 3 for 8, and he's been top 5, top 10 in the country in face-off win percentage the entirety of the season. If you're that man right there, Syracuse defensive coordinator John O'Dearna, and your defense is kind of playing on its heels, what are you saying?
You just have to anticipate and slide earlier. With the offense, patience was my theme of the day. Take a second, take a little bit of a later shot. You have no opportunity for patience when you're playing defense.
3 unanswered goals for High Point, and here's how they've gotten them. Van Overbeek has been the initiator. That box lacrosse background, you see it there with the underhand flip from Braden Maea. But Van Overbeek can score those goals too.
No, well, Van Overbeek can do anything, but on the first and third goals right there, Riley Figueres was the key defender that was late on his slide, and he's the best cover man on this team, or at least usually is, but that quality hasn't been there from him this second quarter.
Asking so much out of a redshirt freshman, Figueres, to be your top cover man. High Point has scored 4 of the last 5 goals dating back to the closing moment of the first quarter after Syracuse got off to arguably its best start to a game all year, at least in terms of goals scored. High Point hasn't beaten a top 10 team since 2019. They still got a hole to claw out of, and turning it over, like they almost did there, isn't going to help as Nick Rizzo hit the deck. An easy save, or at least Will Mark makes it look easy. The sidewinder from Nick Murphy into the stick of Mark for save number 4.
And some really strong defense there from the short stick, Nathan Levine. He's been playing better defensively than most of the Poles this quarter.
A name that's been called upon much more than in years past for Syracuse, Levine. Orange need to make this offensive possession meaningful. Just 1 goal since the 13-minute mark in this second frame. Finn Thompson can't get free. Behind the back, at least the fade from Leo. English v. Ali Dodge. Off the right pipe. Leo's one-timer doesn't go. And the Orange don't necessarily stall out, but they don't catch a break.
Not much off-ball movement at all in that offensive possession for the Orange. A lot of pick and rolls or isolations. Some backdoor cuts would be super helpful. Just mixing things up, and Syracuse has the depth to tire guys out if needed. It's not like you need to conserve energy or anything.
Also give High Point's defense credit too. The Panthers have stayed disciplined. No penalties on John Torpy's unit. I was thinking about Furman men's basketball team. Talking about UVA getting upset. A cut and three, buzzer goes! The Panthers are roaring. The assist from Van Overbeek and the score from Colin Cook. The second quarter has been all High Point. 4-1 advantage. Van Overbeek from X once again.
And that wasn't really anyone caught out of position. Carter Rice, the short stick, was right in front of Cook. You can't really blame him for that. That was solid defense, just better offense. But after that goal, defensive coordinator John O'Dearna, he just threw his hands up in the air. He's confused, though he is having some angry words with Carter Rice right now, so maybe there was some sort of mistake in there.
Van Overbeek is a great initiator of offense, but it looked a little too easy for the attack to pick his spots with this Syracuse defense. A big hit on the wing, and High Point comes up with the face-off. No flag flew. Strong effort from the High Point wings as Colin Hoban got the ground ball. And another timeout. And another wise move from veteran head coach John Torpy. The emotions have to be high for a High Point team. It's scored 5 of the last 6 goals, but he's going to make sure they keep it reeled in.
You don't want to get ahead of yourself. You don't want to take a silly shot because you get too excited. You get 2 timeouts in the first half. Use them both in great spots.
Syracuse hasn't scored a goal in over 10 minutes. High Point, meanwhile, has gone on a 4-0 run. And you see it, just how Jack Van Overbeek is distributing right now. His teammate Cook saying, good look from you.
You gotta love appreciating the teammate there. There's been a whole lot of appreciating each other for High Point this quarter.
Just a lot of unselfishness from Coach John Torpy's crew. You win the same amount of face-offs in the first quarter as you have so far in the second, but just taking advantage of their opportunities, making big-time adjustments against John O'Dearna's defense in that quarter break. This is the first time, I think, all season we can say, Tyler, that we've seen a team score at will against High Point. Maybe you got to go back to that first half against Maryland for when John O'Dearna's defense really didn't have an answer mid-game.
Yeah, but that's Maryland. That's not High Point.
That's the top 5 team. This is a team receiving votes.
The only 2 teams that Syracuse has had any struggles with all year long have been top 5 teams in the country. And High Point is receiving votes, yes, but High Point is not Maryland. High Point's not Army. There have been some slow starts, but those slow starts were, oh, Utah scored the first goal and Syracuse stormed right back. Yep. Vermont scored the first goal and then Syracuse stormed right back. This is a little bit different. Syracuse went up big early, but High Point has outplayed Syracuse and outworked Syracuse in this quarter.
Syracuse looked at this game as a potential get-right game after you lose to Army and you have Hopkins next week in Charlotte. But High Point, its first ever trip to the Dome, and they are playing like it. They're playing like a team that wants a signature win in its non-conference slate after losing to Duke at home earlier this year. Off the timeout. Just under halfway through the shot clock. High, it's in! But it gets waved off. It did not find the back of the net. It just snuck by the left pipe and landed on the netting, but not in it.
The bench certainly thought it went in.
Syracuse a chance to score a legitimate goal for the first time in 11 minutes of action. Too much physicality in the midfield from High Point leads to a stoppage in play, but no card. Can this Syracuse offense get back in a rhythm? Luke Roa with room. Hiltz gets free, and another pipe job. Ringing off the right pipe. Michael Leo, a few minutes ago, also had a chance on a step-down shot from the right alley, and it was rejected by the post as well.
There's got to be a magnet in that thing or something. That's certainly what it feels like for the Syracuse attack right now.
A hard bouncer deflects away, and the rebound corralled by Zach Overend and High Point. He's also stepped up big time as well. Started his game allowing 8 of the first 10 shots on goal he faced to go in, and now he's made 4 consecutive saves.
7 total saves, 8 goals allowed, and especially when you get rid of the first few minutes, once he got the nerves out of the way, he's been pretty nails in cage.
What up, boys?
Just under a 48% save rate on the year. Who knows where that resounding message came through. High Point's feeling good right now, despite the 3-goal deficit. Panthers have scored 5 of the last 6 since late in the first frame. Colin Cook scored the last goal, and he has it. Van Overbeek gets topside. Matched up with Carter Rice. Rice and Van Overbeek once again. Quick stick. Back in front. Caden Cole going at it. You can hear that from all the way up here. Van Overbeek up top. What the save! The senior steps up big on senior day, trying to halt this Panthers run. But this ride presenting a challenge for Syracuse, as neither team has corralled it in the midfield. The Orange have been perfect on clears today. Play finally stopped. Syracuse has the ball.
A little bit of a late push there from Christian Muley. Some frustration clearly visible in this Syracuse team. The Orange are getting frustrated. It's a chippy Panthers team. There's a lot of bodies in there. It is a lot of contact. It's hard to stay away from people. He took a little bit of contact high, though.
Ryan Hines might have gotten a shot late on Muley. And he said, "What's up about that, huh?" And then he kind of retaliated. That's the thing about a scrum. A lot of testosterone in one place at one time.
Watch here.
And the frustration certainly boiling over a bit for Syracuse, who's only scored 1 second quarter goal off the stick of Joey Spallina, who's been great statistically, 5 points. Orange on the ride, get the ball back, and there is number 22. Back to Hiltz, wide open, that's too easy. The Orange beating the buzzer. But High Point rushes the field because the goal appears to be waved off. Frame for frame, let's see. Did Owen Hiltz fire this one off in time? On the field, they say no. And they're right, it did not leave his stick before the clock hit triple zeros. Just when you think the Orange have broken out of a rut, the door gets slammed in Gary Gate and company's face. It would be a much-needed score and momentum boost headed into that halftime locker room.
I mean, it's pretty clear here. The clock's about to strike 0 right there. And then he still has the ball in his stick for the entire forward motion. It's pretty clear no goal to me.
No goal is the call. Gary Gate just looked back at the crowd and shrugged.
No goal.
He did everything that he could do. Why not throw the challenge flag? But the score stays 8-5. Syracuse scored the first 7 goals of this game. But in their first ever game against High Point, the Panthers aren't going away. High Point scores 5 of the last 6, And we've got a ball game headed into the second half. Because before the Orange can think about Hopkins, they got to pull out a win against High Point. And it's all Panthers right now in terms of momentum. A face-off violation for the Orange. Their first of the game leads to High Point getting things going to start this second half. And Tyler, the end of the first half could have been a great chance for Syracuse to up the lead to 4, but Owen Hiltz did not beat the buzzer.
It's a tough ask. I mean, he didn't have the ball in his stick for too long. It's just tough to come up with a takeaway, then turn it into a goal in a span of 15 seconds was almost going to be impossible. The fact that he put it in the net was impressive, just didn't count.
Whistles blow as High Point turns it over. A Panthers offense that had plenty of more opportunities in the second quarter than it did in the first, and not for possessions like that. Carter Rice feeds off to Hiltz. Cross-field feed. Spolina. Maybe a unwise move to rush that shot because nobody was there on the backup for SU.
Yeah, it's one thing if you have a good angle on the shot to rip that, but because it was kind of a pretty flat angle from the weak side, just doesn't make sense unless you know you're getting the ball back on the miss.
Spolina had an extremely productive first quarter with 4 points. Also scored Syracuse's lone goal of the second. 5 points for Spolina, but none of them in the last 10+ minutes of game action. Will Mark with the save. That shot might not have been headed towards cage from Jack Van Overbeek, who was the first half star for the Panthers with 4 points. Alexo thought of a shot, but the long pole is sent away by Robbie Lang. Over 15 minutes of scoreless action for one of the top 10 scoring offenses in the country in the Orange. Tyler, what do you think High Point has done the best defensively from the first quarter to the second?
The biggest thing has been no mistakes. I mean, High Point...
Well, no penalty there, but a Syracuse score. Michael Leo just threads the bottom left corner as the Orange break up a 4-goal unanswered run from HPU.
I say limiting mistakes on the defensive end has been great. I wouldn't necessarily call that a mistake. That's just Michael Leo being a pretty good lacrosse player and a really strong dude. But in general, High Point has really limited issues, especially with penalties. Not a single penalty on the day. Syracuse, one of the last teams in the country you want to put on the extra man, and Syracuse hasn't played a man up today. So that's been big for High Point. But with Michael Leo moving like that, you might as well have an extra player on the field. That's what it feels like. Mason
Cohn hasn't been at his best today, but he wins this draw pretty easily. Now 4 for 10 at the X, and he stays on the field because he sees an opportunity. And then it quickly closes in on him. He does have 9 points on the year. The former 2 sports star at Division III Tufts, played both hockey and lacrosse. Lauded by Gary Gate for his talent and ability, given the fact that he has never played fall ball lacrosse until this year because he was a dual athlete with the Jumbos. And lauded by Joey Spolina in the preseason as well for his work ethic, saying that he gets up when I get up in the morning. Owen Hiltz with a fancy feed to Jake Stevens in his first game back from an upper body injury. But the mini still scoreless. Cutter in front. Spolina denied. Zach Overend stands on his head once again. He started this game allowing 8 of his first 10 shots on goal to go in. Now he's got 9 saves and only 9 goals allowed.
It's been the performance of the year for him, doing this against an attack like Syracuse. And it's so easy to shut down as a goalie after you let up 6 goals in the first few minutes of the game, but he stuck with it. He started figuring out the reads. He started figuring out what Syracuse's shots look like, and he's been tracking super well.
It might have been saved by Overend, but it's not going to go in the books as one. Spolina turned it over by stepping in the crease, but he still looked on top of his game. Overend has. High Point on the other end in search of its first goal past halftime. Some dodging and
Syracuse isn't going to run away with it. You can't just flush a second quarter like that down the drain. And Van Overbeek, again, making Syracuse's best man-to-man defender, Riley Figueres, look pretty silly on the defensive half, just charged right by him.
Second hat trick of the season for Van Overbeek, and that's just in 5 games because he missed the Cleveland State game last week. He is doing it all right now. We talked a lot about Braden Maia in the pregame, but Van Overbeek, an extremely well-rounded attackman. Ball pops up high in the air, straight into the cross of Colin Hoban. Make it, take it, but he's trapped. Syracuse, Johnny Mullen and Sammy English trying to poke the ball free. A team effort from High Point to keep it on their end of the field. Sam Alexo wanted it too, but Jack Van Overbeek and company wanted it a little bit more. Van Overbeek, a wraparound deflected on its way towards Cage, but the Panthers get the ground ball.
I mean, Syracuse clearly wants these faceoffs. There's effort there. You saw Sam Alexo lay out a big hit, but you can't just give effort without having some finesse there. And High Point on these faceoffs, especially on the wings, playing with finesse.
Colin Hoban, it got physical there. He's won 9 of 16 draws for the grad student. High Point has scored 6 of the last 8 goals in this game, dating back to late in the first quarter. Van Overbeek lost his footing. And another ball lost. Moran Weeks has it checked free, but somehow they get it back and they score! Jack Van Overbeek can do no wrong.
Well, for him, he did the easy part of the job. He just sent the ball into the back of the net. The real hero on that play, Jack Sawyer, making his first start of the year, heads up pass, knew right where to look when he picked up the ball. Taking advantage of his first starting opportunity of the year. A huge play there. The bench is getting more and more hyped after every single goal.
An underrated aspect of this game, the ground ball battle. Plus 12, High Point. Syracuse headed into that Army game, the number 2 team in the country at scooping up ground balls. And right there, that's a ground ball that turns right into a goal after Syracuse was getting physical, but maybe too physical. Another face-off one. That time it wasn't Colin Hoban. Luca Accardo.
Yeah, Accardo takes at least 5 face-offs every single game, was 6 for 9 against Cleveland State last week. He's a super solid backup, basically the John Mullen for his team, the second guy that still gets quite a bit of attempts.
Well, the combo of Accardo and Hoban, 11 of 19 at the X. A wraparound and a good slide from Dwan. Oh my goodness! High Point's going crazy, and Braden Maia is too. A spin around score with no angle.
I mean, everybody in this stadium is in disbelief right now. Caden Cole didn't see that coming. Will Mark didn't see that coming. And guess who's responsible for a big part of this play? It's Jack Van Overbeek again with a huge pass and a fancy finish by Maia.
I don't even think Maia was looking at the goal. His second on the game. The leading goal scorer on this High Point team a season ago. Talked to Coach John Torpy. He said, I hope we have him in the lineup today. A little banged up. They haven't practiced much this week. I don't know. It looks like they're pretty good. Syracuse wins a much-needed face-off. Mason Cohen goes right down Broadway. Denied on a high-low shot. Another save for Overend.
It's not an awful look there by Cone, but with the frustration losing all of these face-offs in a row, I kind of had the feeling that he was going to go out there and maybe rush a shot. And he didn't necessarily rush that, but it wasn't the perfect look. It was a good look, not a great one, losing a bit of the patience the Hornets had so well in the first quarter.
A first quarter that Syracuse ended ahead 7-1. High Point has scored 8 of the last 10. Talk about a fantastic first ever meeting with Syracuse. The Panthers in search of their first top 10 win in half a decade. English and alley dodge. Spolina, a cutter, and a score! Owen Hiltz wants to make sure his senior day doesn't get spoiled.
First goal of the day for Hiltz, first point of the day from Hiltz. The assist will go to Joey Spolina. He didn't do all that much there. He was standing on his heels behind Cage. Just a nice lob of a pass. It's that simplicity and that patience that makes the offense work so well for the Orange. But still, this is far from a safe lead for SU.
Well, Hiltz nabs his 11th goal of the year. Could have had his 11th right before halftime, but a lefty sidewinder didn't beat the buzzer. That was also off a feed from Spolina, who jarred it free on the ride and gave his team a last-ditch opportunity. Spolina up to 6 points with his second assist, and Johnny Mullen wins it to himself with ease. It's been pretty much a 50-50 battle at the Circle today, and that's why High Point is fought back in this game.
Yeah, Mullen 5 for 10, Cone 5 for 11. Both right around 50%. It's not like one has been greater than the other, and that's why Coach Gate keeps switching between them.
Getting his hands free, and a bouncer is deflected away by Overend. And High Point with a fantastic feed to get loose in transition. Van Overbeek with 7 points for High Point. 4 goals, 3 helpers. A pass to Moran Week sails well beyond his head. An easy pickings for Riley Figueres. Spolina some room, a little 2-man game.
How about Carter Rice on that reception?
Yeah, maybe not the guy I want to dance with on the offensive end, Bishop Stick, as he makes his way to the sideline. Back to Spolina, behind the back. Niue can't pot it. Had a great game against Army. Niue did, with a hat trick. And some highlight reel goals right on the doorstep. But not there.
Looking for another highlight reel goal right there.
Now trying to show off what he can do as a Dodger. Gets top side, a little no look. Overend leaps towards the end line, but it stays with Syracuse. 24 ticks on the shot clock. Spolina, 26 assists on the year, nearly gets 27. Niue's shot poked away by Overend. Shot clock reset for the Orange. Leo, flag flies. He took some contact to the head from Henry Mudlaff.
Yeah, that flag came late. I mean, the stick literally hit the bottom right at the chin of his helmet. That is a dangerous play.
Hiltz gets free, loses the ball. High Point's going to kick it to midfield, but whenever play stops, Syracuse is going to take over. And for the first time today, SU on the man up. This is one of the best teams in the country, Tyler, at converting with man-up opportunities. Gary Gate and his creativity alongside offensive coordinator Pat March, a big part of that. Here's the call.
Black 29/1 minute.
So 1 minute for Syracuse's offense to work with. I mean, like I was saying before, Leo just took the stick right to the chin. That certainly gotta hurt. But you were mentioning Syracuse, a good man-up team. The Panthers, not the greatest man-down team in the country. They only stop about 40% of man-up opportunities for opponents. That's bottom 5 in the entire country. This is an opportunity Syracuse can't waste in a 2-goal game.
After the penalty from Henry Mudlath. Low, deflected away. Syracuse gets the ground ball. Hiltz his shot, no dice. Stevens and Hiltz applying the pressure. Syracuse keeps it thanks to Spolina. Still on the advantage.
Yeah, rushed 2 shots there. Still over half of the penalty remaining. No need to force anything.
A little swim dodge and a score! Staying patient is Owen Hiltz. Back-to-back scores for number 77.
Yeah, that's the opposite of forcing anything. A beautiful, smooth swimming stroke from Owen Hiltz. His second goal in the last few minutes. 11-8, Syracuse clinging to a lead, but it's close.
4, and Michael Leo with a deuce as well. That last score coming on the man up as well. Off the first High Point penalty of the game. Jake Stevens wins it on the wings for Syracuse. And Mason Cone feeds it back to Stevens, who loses his angle and the ball. Hiltz on the pickup. Mason Cone and Johnny Mullen talking about stopping the bleeding. They have been important in this third quarter as well at the X. Hiltz tries to stay hot. And that's exactly what he does. Making it look too easy, pumping up the crowd and giving the Orange some breathing room.
He's on an absolute tear right now. Syracuse riding the hot hand. Beautiful dodge by him. Pings the upper corner.
This is the Owen Hiltz that Syracuse fans haven't seen in a while. Tyler, he hasn't had to take over at any point this season with all the options the Orange have on offense, but you forget at one point he was the #2 recruit in the entire country. And he scored a hat trick in a matter of moments.
Yeah, he doesn't often go on these big tears, but he has been the most consistent player at SU over these past 2 seasons. Scored a point in every game last year, has scored a point in every game this year. But when he does go on these bursts, it's certainly welcome.
The Orange have gone on a burst at the X. Another win on the wings. Johnny Mullen picked up the ground ball.
That's 3 straight faceoff wins for the Orange.
A 3-0 run from Syracuse after High Point, who initially went down 7-0 in this game, drew within 1. Sammy English trying to up the lead. When he gets that right hand free, he's dangerous. Spolina spins inside, scores! 5 goals for Joey Spolina in his first of the second half. Orange up 5.
Spolina's been quiet since the second quarter, but a beautiful spin there again, setting up his own shot. He has worked well all day long on Zach Brenfleck, the High Point defender. And he doesn't even get too excited anymore. It's just kind of the expectation for him. And that's what makes it so hard to be a player like Spolina. When you play like this, it's expected. When you play poor, that's when it's a problem.
Especially when you wear the number 22 at Syracuse, you're always going to be under the microscope. Whatever you're looking at today, it looks pretty good. 5 goals for Spolina, that ties a career high. Jake Stevens getting mobbed, but he makes his way to cage. Behind the back flip, that is insane. That is number 22. Put that one under a microscope.
Joey Spolina with a beautiful finish, but even more impressive maybe by Jake Stevens. The failed swim dodge, getting mauled by 2 different defenders there, third. But Joey Spolina nails another goal. Like you said, he's 22.
After one of the worst games of his career against Army, a career high 6 goals. And that might be the highlight of his young Syracuse career so far. or at least from an emotional standpoint, even he, who you just mentioned, Tyler, you know, he expects this, and people should expect it from him, but he got amped after that one. Johnny Mullen, another one!
All that pent-up anger, all that frustration from a huge high point run over the last 2 quarters. It is being thrown back at the Panthers right now. A huge run coming from Owen Hiltz to Joey Spallina. And now even face-off specialist John Mullen getting involved.
Getting involved for the first time in his Orange career as a goal scorer. You said earlier today he wants to be Mason Cone, right? Doing all that goal scoring. This Syracuse run. SU is now outscored High Point by 4 goals in this 3rd quarter. A 6-goal run from the Cuse. And 5 goals. I'm gonna let you guess. How many seconds you think it's been?
How many seconds? We're not even measuring in minutes?
Yep. 5 goals in 84 seconds for Syracuse. You took too long.
That's less than I would have guessed. It took me almost as long to think about it than it did for them to score those goals.
Muley finds the cutter, and he's going to do something crazy, because why not? Jackson Birtwistle. Timeout on the field. There is no stopping the number 7 Orange right now, with 7 unanswered goals.
7 unanswered goals. I'm doing the math in my head. Probably about, what, 90 total seconds, maybe a few more. This has to be one of the quickest and largest runs of the entire season, not just for Syracuse, but for any team in the country.
They call across the game of runs, but this is a marathon, a sprint. I don't know what you want to categorize it as. Muley finding one of the 10 senior day celebrants. I don't even know if that's a word. That's how crazy this one's getting. Jackson Birtwistle with the score. High Point was in this game, Tyler. A 1-goal game earlier in this quarter. And now all that Coach John Torpy and company can do is get a drink of water and just try your best to reset.
You got to do something. What's sticking out to me is in this 7-goal run, only 3 of the goals were assisted. Everyone's playing well on Syracuse, but they're playing well kind of in their own way. Everybody's playing to their own strengths. Hiltz is getting open on the wings. Spallina with some spin moves. John Mullen charging Gage after a faceoff win. Everyone is using their best strength to help Syracuse get on top, and it's beautiful to watch.
Who would have thought Gary Gait would be all smiles at one point in the second half after the way that his Orange team ended the first half. It was a 4-goal game at the break. High Point brought it within 1. And now defensive coordinator John O'Dearna and Gary Gait much more relieved after a 7-0 run for Syracuse in this 3rd quarter. SU out shooting High Point by 20. They've now won 4 more face-offs than the Panthers. And there's one more. Johnny Mullen, proving he's more than just a number 2 option at the face-off X. But maybe gets a little too carried away as he oversails Christian Muley behind cage.
I mean, he never claimed to be a great passer. We saw he can shoot. We've seen that he can dominate at X. But passing, maybe you'll have to wait here on that one.
He's taken just 1 less draw than Mason Cone, and they've won 8 each. The most involved we've seen Johnny Mullen, so you're going to get a lot of good and a lot of bad when you're out there longer.
But just such a difference from last year when Syracuse went to 2 face-off specialists because neither of them were really stepping up to the challenge. This year, Syracuse can go to 2 because they both play well.
Jack Van Overbeek has stepped up to the challenge today, doing his best to keep High Point in it. One of the best games of his career. That's goal number 5 and point number 8.
He's been putting High Point on his back today. I mean, had nobody in front of him. Again, a late shift by Syracuse. This time, Billy Dwan, the guilty party. But he can't do it alone, and he really has been trying to. He has eight points on 9 total goals. If he hasn't been involved, then his team hasn't really been doing anything else.
It's a one-man show against a number 7 Orange team that is clicking on all cylinders in this third quarter. Braden Maia, he's had a couple highlight reel moments. His 2 goals were both sensational scores, an underhanded flip and a no-look score. But outside of those 2, just 2 other goal scorers for High Point.
So yeah, that's a total of 4 for the Panthers. The Orange have 7 different people that have found the back of the net. Depth is just such a big difference between these 2 teams. We talked about recruiting earlier, how High Point knows it's not getting the top 100 guys. I mean, Syracuse can pull in as many top 100 guys as it wants, it feels like.
Number 1 recruiting class in the country 2 years ago. You know the resume, 11-time national champions. High Point has only been a Division I team since 2013. You couldn't get 2 drastically different programs in one building. Sammy English high to low. One of the standouts of this game for High Point has been its netminder, Zach Overend. Save number 13, and he has been pressured and caged with 29 shots on goal coming his way.
He's had tough spurts in the past few minutes and at the start of the game, but from the second quarter to the early third quarter, he was standing on his head every few moments. It felt like getting peppered and doing a pretty darn good job against a great offense.
You got to give credit. In the last 2 unranked matchups that Syracuse has played against Utah a week and a half ago and High Point in this one, both goalies have faced significant pressure. But both have stood up to the task. Today, it's Zach Overend and High Point. Will Marcus save. Speaking of goalies, he wants to get his name back in the conversation. That's his 7th stop of the afternoon. But High Point gets the ball back. Sheer will from Braden Maia.
Rise like a phoenix from the ashes. 3 long poles surrounding him, and somehow he came out with it.
That's one way to put it.
I mean, he's 5'9", 185, going against a bunch of much bigger guys.
I mean, I'm not saying it was a bad way to put it. It's very poetic. Another save for Will Mark. That shot from who else but Jack Van Overbeek, who does have 5 goals. Syracuse facing some pressure on the ride. And now turning it over, Jack Sawyer. Van Overbeek, a flip. The poles come crashing down on Colin Cook, who does have a goal himself. Last chance for a High Point to reestablish any kind of momentum. Syracuse, a 7-0 run. A 7-1 run, Lavin. And now a 7-2 run. As number 7 for High Point, Ryan Hines, gets them in double digits.
Hines had a really tough start to the year, but now has a goal in each of the last 3 games, a total of 3 on the season, 1, 1, and 1. That last one coming against Syracuse through 2 defenders, fading away against one of the best netminders in the country. That's quite the way to pick up your first goal of the day. But again, all of these might be too little, too late. Still a 6-goal deficit.
Not gone away. Syracuse has found a way at the XO, and it's made the job for Coach John Torpy's crew much more difficult. It's going to be Johnny Mullen. 8 for 13, now 9 for 14, and he goes down swinging. That's the end of 3 quarters, and what a third quarter it was for Syracuse. Quite possibly its most impressive quarter of the young season. Syracuse doesn't want to avoid a home upset at a pivotal point in its season. On senior day, everybody is showing out. They call the game of lacrosse a game of runs for a reason. It's because Syracuse dominates the first quarter. Maryland, rather High Point. Syracuse has already played Maryland this year. High Point a strong second quarter. Syracuse, though, Tyler, with an unreal third quarter where they peppered High Point with 20 shots.
20 shots compared to just 9 from the Panthers. And it's taking all those opportunities. You know why that happened? Well, it's because Syracuse won 11 of 14 faceoffs in the third period.
They don't win the first faceoff to start the fourth quarter, and the momentum and the run back in the possession of High Point. Jack Sawyer with the score. Right off the faceoff win. That's back-to-back for the Panthers dating back to the last frame.
I said it earlier when he picked up a nice assist, but Jack Sawyer making the most of his first start of the year, just pinged it.
And it all started with Colin Hoban at the X. Sawyer, his 5th strike on the season. Hoban and Mullen this time around. Mullen has had a career day. 9 face-off wins, and that's number 10, adding on to a career high for the top 100 recruit out of Massachusetts. In the preseason, yes, Mason Cohn was getting a lot of buzz, but if you were talking to head coach Gary Gait, you were hearing Johnny Mullen's name a lot, and this is why.
He was advertised as truly an option Syracuse could go to, and that's how they've used him. He's a true option and not just a backup.
You mentioned last year at times it got a bit ugly at the X for Syracuse, rotating with a couple different options. And Johnny Rachusa and Jack Fine. Joey Spolina with a turnaround shot denied off the stick of Zach Overend. Spolina, a fantastic game. 0 goals against Army on Wednesday, a career high 6 tonight, to go along with a couple assists as well. High Point, a chance to bring it within 4. The man of the hour, Jack Van Overbeek, his pass deflected. 8 points for the senior, who gets the short stick matchup against Carter Rice. Draws a slide from Figueres. Pass up top, off the pipe. That shot from Sawyer, who scored the last goal for the Panthers. Syracuse finds the ball in the corner, and Mark finds Caden Cole. A couple seniors on their senior day trying to ensure that the Orange remain undefeated this season against unranked competition. 7th straight home game to start the campaign for Syracuse. Ball stuck in the midfield. Sam Alexo, a shove of Tommy Meehan, and SU clears it.
Joey Spolina cradling the ball right now. Shot clock's gonna reset, but Spolina's been so great today, but again, against an unranked opponent with a not particularly strong matchup in Zach Brenfeld. Coming up in the next few months, he's gonna have to take on all 3 all-ACC preseason picks. Paul Barton out of North Carolina, Kenny Brower out of Duke, Cole Kastner out of Virginia. So he's got some options that may shut him down like Army and Maryland did.
Johns Hopkins, the next opponent for Syracuse, a top 10 scoring defense in the country. Oh, and did we say that they beat Virginia today? I don't know why any Johns Hopkins fans would be tuning into this broadcast, but if you are, the narrative in college lacrosse this season has been Syracuse and Johns Hopkins. Are they back? The 2 perennial programs that you think of when you think of men's college lacrosse. Syracuse still without a signature win, but now they're trying to avoid an upset loss.
I mean, if I were a Johns Hopkins fan, I'd be tuning in just to scout out this team for next week. That's going to be a huge battle on a big day of lacrosse down in Charlotte. The Crown Lacrosse Classic should be a fun one for both teams.
High Point's going to be there as well, playing Jacksonville. A couple of the better mid-majors in the country squaring off. That would have been insane. A low to high spinorama from Braden Maia, who hasn't had the biggest day. 2 goals, but those 2 scores, as we've talked about, were filthy. 5-goal game with still over 11 minutes to play. High Point trying to extend its win streak to 4 and pick up one of its biggest wins in program history. Hight, a low shot from Hines, deflected off the body of Mark. A shot clock reset for High Point. Making some substitutions. Isaiah Moran-Weeks in and Ian Can out. And Moran-Weeks right back to the bench. Cook slides by Trujillo, but can't fire in a shot cross body. Van Overbeek frees himself up and cannot get the bottom left corner. Will Mark, he's seen the ball well in the last few minutes. Give him 11 saves.
And Van Overbeek had a great look there. All the defenders in his area kind of rotated away. Just got to give a lot of credit to Will Mark on that save, because it was just him and Van Overbeek, no defender in between.
Will Mark, what will be his final season at Syracuse in terms of eligibility. What a godsend he's been. The narrative this year for the Orange has been bringing in the reinforcements at the face-off X to fix a unit that was bottom 10 in the country a year ago, and Will Mark was exactly what the Orange needed in between the pipes after 2022, where their save rate as a team hovered around 40%.
Still plenty of time left in this year, but I'm sure in the back of all the coaches' minds thinking about who the heck replaces Will Mark. Jimmy McCool, a really talented recruit, but Mark has big shoes to fill.
Still plenty of season to go, and that's not one of the top priorities just yet. Orange in search of their 5th win on the year. Luke Roa had that shot that was backed up by the Orange. Spallina trying to add to his career day. Burt whistle, no good, but the rebound is. High Point doesn't think it is, but the referees do. Chaos in front, and the goal goes to Christian Muley for now.
Yeah, it looks like Muley didn't step on the crease. It was close, but he kept his toes behind. I mean, if anything, the goalie overend really dove out of the crease, made some contact, but Muley seemed to be in the clear.
There is a challenge flag sitting at midfield, thrown out by High Point head coach John Torpy. Syracuse used the coach's challenge late in the first half to see if Owen Hilt's goal would go in. It did not.
On the field of a goal, no goal.
High Point challenging a goal, no goal as well. Trying to draw within 5 late in this one.
Just couldn't find an angle that showed it was the other way.
Well, that rule was certainly examined heavily after the Maryland game. Not necessarily the same rule, but just the rule book in general. Syracuse has found itself in interesting spots all year in terms of official reviews and things going their way, not going their way.
What was ironic about the post-Maryland game debacle is that Coach John Tillman of Maryland is actually one of the leaders of the rules committee for the NCAA. He's on the coaches committee there, and he mentioned a little bit after the game about how it's going to be a process and they're going to learn, but it was nice to get the rule changes in, and they'll tweak them as they need to.
Well, for now, the rule stands, and Maryland beat Syracuse in overtime, and Army beat Syracuse in overtime as well. The Orange trying to bounce back from that Wednesday defeat, and defensive efforts like that are going to help Carter Rice with the caused turnover and the ground ball pickup as he strips Van Overbeek of the ball. This was once a one-goal game midway through the third quarter. High Point was down just a goal. Ever since, Syracuse has outscored the Panthers 8-2, including a 7-0 run in the third.
Well, it was also a 6-0 lead for Syracuse at one point, too.
Yep.
You look at the scores at different points in this game, it doesn't feel like it's been one cohesive game whatsoever.
A misfire between Hiltz and Moulet, but they're going to call that a shot. So Syracuse keeps it with just under 40 on the timer. Halfway through this fourth quarter. And even if High Point can't complete the comeback, still a really impressive effort for John Torpy's squad, especially after losing by double-digit goals at home to Duke earlier this season. A transition chance, a long pole shot, a rebound not scooped up. Mark finally gets his stick on it and finds an open Christian Moulet 50 yards down the field. The effort, a one-man wrecking crew. Campbell Posen couldn't pot it. A short stick on the loose.
Would have been his first goal of the year.
Spallina, his hands up, saying, let's move, guys. In search of his third assist of the night and 9th point. They're zoning him up, so no pressure to act with urgency.
No, when they play off him, he really sits on his heels. Some players you'll see, they'll be jumping on their toes back there. He's completely flat-footed because he has no intentions of moving.
Well, that shot clock continues to move. Over half a minute to go. Trying to lull this High Point defense to sleep and potentially deliver the knockout punch. Spallina finally decides to do it himself. And that's usually a good thing. Joey Spallina adding to the career high with 7 goals. 7-goal lead as well for the Orange with 6 minutes to go.
The ultimate prove-it game for Joey Spallina. Look, I know it's against unranked High Point, but no goals.
Oh, man, that just, sorry to cut you off, Tyler, that leaked right out of a cross of Overhand.
Certainly not one of the prettier goals by Spallina, but 7 is no accident. Maybe you have 1 or 2 mixed in there, but you can't get lucky for all 7 goals. And just so good for him mentally after that 0-goal performance against Army that we've been talking about all day long.
Joey Spallina can do some special things, but catches a little bit of a break. Overhand did about as good a job of saving a shot as you can without actually saving it. The ball got so deep in the netting of his stick that it just ricocheted out and past his shoulder and in to the net.
Yeah, he looked down at it afterwards. He thought it was in there.
He had no idea where the ball was.
Is there a hole in the back there? No, there wasn't. He just dropped it.
9 points for Joey Spallina. A point away from tying his career high, which he set earlier this season against Manhattan here in the Dome. A pass knocked down, and Syracuse comes away with it again as it finds the stick of Billy Dwan, the sophomore and former top 100 recruit. Syracuse proving today, Tyler, that it can win tough. It can win when they have the odds stacked against them. Yeah, it's not against a top 5 team, but mentally they've never been out of this game.
Not at all, and it's especially big because the score is not going to look too ugly either. And I know Gary Gait will probably say he doesn't care about the rankings, but after a loss earlier in the week, then if you only win by a bit to High Point, the rankings could fall quite a bit when the new poll comes out next week. This will be a respectable final score, and Syracuse will drop, but maybe not by too much.
High Point, meanwhile, who knows? Maybe they get some more votes. It's not going to be an extremely tight final score, but they battled all day. Off a stick of Will Mark, the running shot from Tommy Meehan. Backed up by Jack Van Overbeek. A save on the other end from Zach Overand after the shot from Luke Roa. Overand has seen 35 shots on cage. Will Mark, meanwhile, has only seen 24. 13 saves from Mark on his senior day. Low to low goes. Just shuffled that one in there. Braden Maia, a hat trick. And his first game back from a small injury.
And that one was pretty because it pinged off one pipe, and then bounced to the other from one side to the other. It's kind of like in bowling when you have a split and you get that one pin to go over to the other side. Maybe he practiced that the other day because High Point did just go bowling as a team, Ian.
I knew you were going to go there too, Tyler. You know, Coach John Torpy talked to him, and that was, of course, my first question to him because, you know, these guys are multifaceted. Torpy did not participate in bowling day. The second go around, he says that was lucky for his players because he is one of the best bowlers, he says, on this team. Apparently somebody on High Point bowled a 180. He did not remember who. Maybe it was Maia.
It's very possible. He seems to be good at whatever he does.
One of the best attackmen in the A10. Only the second year High Point has been in the conference. Was previously in the SoCon, where they won that league twice and made a couple NCAA tournaments in 2015 and 21. New goalie in the game for the Orange on the other end of the field. On his senior day, Patrick Duffy getting some run. The usual backup, Jimmy McCool. Still Zach Overand in net for High Point. 17 saves. Not one there. The captain on senior day, Brett Tenaglia, gets on the scoreboard.
A redshirt senior, someone who's put in 5 years of work for the Orange and doesn't play a whole ton, but he's a captain for a reason. He's a leader. And hey, when he is put on the field, he can find the corner pretty easily.
And fitting as well that the man who found him, another one of the veterans on this team who doesn't see a ton of run, in Blake Earlbeck. 2 of the 10 celebrating senior day. Tenaglia, his 4th game of the season and his 2nd goal. And there is another one of the seniors getting their moment in the sun, albeit under the overhang of the dome, and Patrick Duffy, the Portland native. This is the game that Syracuse wanted ultimately. A chance for a mental reset after an unbelievably frustrating loss to Army on Wednesday, and a chance to do right by their seniors. And it didn't look pretty at times. Syracuse opens the game up with a 7-0 scoring run. High Point scores 8 of the next 10 goals to draw within 1 in the 3rd. And then Syracuse gets back to business, scoring 7 straight goals into the 3rd quarter.
It's great that they figured it out eventually, but you can't give up those runs against a team like Johns Hopkins and expect to win. So it's going to be a long week of figuring things out and practicing. I mean, the coaching staff is certainly going to have a talk with these players about how expectations need to change going into another ranked opponent.
Syracuse also needs to figure out how to win on the road. The Orange haven't played outside the dome all season. 7 straight home games to start the year. A behind-the-back attempt from Earlbeck, who did have the assist on the previous score for Tenaglia. But 6 of the next 8, Tyler, away from the dome. And it starts with a must-watch neutral site clash in Charlotte next week against a Johns Hopkins team that opened the year with a disappointing result against Denver, but just picked up a big win against UVA. All the giants in the ACC are starting to topple, and Syracuse a chance to prove that the ACC is still as legit as it gets.
Every ACC team had lost. Notre Dame lost last week. Duke had lost Friday night. And so in the back of Virginia's mind, it was probably, hey, here's a chance to hop into the top spot in all the land, and that's not going to happen anymore.
Virginia lost to Hopkins earlier today. Duke last night to Penn, who's rattled off 2 impressive wins. One against Delaware, a ranked team. In close to score. Duffy can't stop that one as Braden Maia blitzed by Veneer Pipe and put it in high to high for goal number 4 on the game. These two are going to have High Point in good hands the rest of the way, Tyler. Maia and Van Overby combining for 9 of their 13 goals.
It's quite the impressive duo there. For Duffy, he just guessed wrong. He could have either gone high, gone low. He went low, shot went high. Have a 50-50 chance. It's almost like a penalty kick in soccer. You got to pick one direction or the other.
You're bringing in a lot of different sports.
We've talked bowling,
soccer,
lacrosse, basketball. We talked about Furman basketball earlier.
Unintentionally.
Unintentionally. I haven't gotten to bring up one of the facts that Robbie Lang, a key defender on the Panthers team, was a big golfer in high school. I mean, we could bring up pretty much every sport today.
That's the beauty of the Dome. You never know what sport's going to be here one day to the next. Basketball one day, lacrosse the next. Duffy, a big-time save, and he scoops up the ground ball.
His bench got loud for him there, making his last save in an SU uniform.
Potentially the last save of his senior day, where the Orange have honored 10 of their most experienced players, but led by the efforts of their sophomore, Joey Spolina. A lot of noise surrounding the former #1 overall recruit after he was held without a goal against #5 Army in an overtime loss on Wednesday. Spolina with 9 points and 7 goals. A hat trick for Owen Hiltz as well. Will Mark with 13 saves. And a breakout effort for Johnny Mullen. 11 faceoffs won on 18 attempts. And over and back for Syracuse. One last possession for High Point. There is going to be a review with 13 seconds to play, or my apologies, a shot clock reset.
That would be quite the time to pull a review. But if it's needed, you always have to do it. That time, they just needed a fresh 60.
Hey, check Mumbos! Mumbos!
Not back to play just yet. As High Point is going to fall for the second time this year. Both of the Panthers' losses have come to top 10 teams in the ACC. Duke at home, and now SU on the road. High Point is going to be back at home at Vert Stadium on Tuesday. Another difficult test. Georgetown, the #11 team in the country. We talked about ACC upsets. The previously 19th ranked Hoyas knocked off Notre Dame last weekend, who was ranked #1. And then they also go to the Crown Classic, just like Syracuse a week from today. High Point does. And they play Jacksonville, who almost knocked off Michigan earlier this week.
Everybody's falling this season.
It's what you like to see, some parity. But today, on senior day, Syracuse showed up. Showed up at the start, showed up at the finish, and that's all you really need. Joey Spolina shows up with 9 points, and Syracuse wins 19-13 in its first ever meeting with High Point against a feisty High Point team today. Alongside my analyst Tyler Aitken and our stats man Nick Whaley. Shout out to our producer Kristen Hennessy. Ian Nicholas signing off after Syracuse picks up a 19-13 win against High Point.